Welcome back to chapter 2. In this video, we're going to be talking about emotional control. So as I said in the previous video, emotional control is very important. Throughout your trading, you are going to face a lot of negative and a lot of positive emotions. While you might think that positive emotions are good and negative emotions are bad, they are both bad. Both types of emotions, how good or how bad they are, can both be detrimental to your success in a trading environment. You need to build emotional resilience and the ability to actually fight off these negative and fight off these positive emotions as they come, because doing so is what's really going to let you trade without emotion and without getting irrational. So, negative emotions. Now, this is probably the biggest one. This is the side of trading, the darker side of trading. All the emotions you're going to feel that you do not want to feel. These are the top negative emotions you'll feel when you're trading. And we're just going to have a talk through these as well in this video on how you can actually push around these. So the top negative emotions, the emotions you're going to face in your trading are fear, frustration, anger, depression, and stress. Fear comes through very, very often because you fear many different things. Now, you fear losing money for a start. You also fear missing opportunity and missing money. So you're going to basically feel some level of fear always, right? Whether you're in a trade and you fear that trade reversing on you, or a trade that's winning and you fear losing out on that profit. And you're also going to feel that fear when you're not in the markets and you instead have a fear of missing opportunities. Frustration's a big one as well. Now, frustration, you must be prepared to feel this one because it has so many different forms in the market. Say you enter a move and the move goes to stop loss and you lose the move. You are going to be frustrated that you lost money. Say you're in a move and it goes so far into profit and then comes back all the way to entry. Now that's going to frustrate you seriously because you just watched all that money disappear. You're also going to be frustrated when you think about entering a move and you don't do it, and then that move turns into a winner. You're frustrated that you missed that whole opportunity by not taking action. And in sometimes as well, you're going to feel frustrated when you win because you didn't go big enough, you didn't make as much profit as you could have. So be prepared to feel frustration in so many different environments. It's something you're going to have to learn to live with, and we will talk a little bit about that later in the video. So anger, as you can imagine, is going to come in. This one is mostly when you lose trades. There's no real other place that you're going to get angry. I mean, you don't get angry when you win. You get angry when you miss out on profits. So if you lose a trade and you lose money, or if your winning trade then comes back to a break-even trade and you end up losing nothing but making nothing, that's also probably going to make you angry in those earlier days before you face that enough and learn to manage it. Now, the worst two of the lot, depression and stress. Now, these two are really, really bad because they can come out in other areas of your life. Now, I'm not saying trading is going to turn you into a depressed, stressed person. Quite the opposite for most. However, if you do risk too much and you lose a lot of your money, for example, people have lost their whole savings in the markets, that is, of course, going to give you a high level of stress and can lead to some level of depression. So the best factors to actually push this, to negate this from happening, is don't risk more than you can lose. And hopefully you won't have to feel that depression in the market. Now, the stress thing, I think everyone's going to feel. Stress, much like frustration and fear, we feel that when we're in trades to a certain degree, but we never want to feel immense stress or depression. So do be careful of the ups and downs that trading can bring, and just really, really be sensible with your money and realize how easy it is to lose. Okay. Something I like to say is when we take a trade, it is essentially a coin flip. It is essentially a gamble, right? It's calculated, it's managed, and the risk is managed, but we are pretty much 50-50 on whether we will win or lose. Now, we have an edge in the markets with our analysis, but as I said before, in that core principle where the market is king, the market has a mind of its own. It can do absolutely anything. You can be the best analyst in the world and you are still going to lose trades that are seemingly perfect just because the market has a mind of its own. Now, that is, of course, going to lead you to loss. And that is why I put such an emphasis on actually managing your risk and keeping your money safe and understanding how easy it can be to lose. if you keep that in mind, you shouldn't actually put too much on the table to get heavily depressed or stressed from your losses. Now, hopefully, through this course, well, definitely throughout this course, we are going to emphasize that, and I'm going to teach you really, really solid, really effective risk management protocols, which should then stop that from ever creeping into your trading. So those are the negative emotions that you are likely to feel at least at some point in your trading journey: fear, frustration, anger, depression, and stress. So the positive emotions I spoke about, which are, while positive inside of your body, inside of your mind, are negative inside of your trading, are excitement, joy, and cockiness. Now, these are the big three. You're going to get excited, you're going to feel joyful, and you're even going to get cocky when you win trades. You're going to feel like the boss, the god of the markets. Now, that is not the case. You can just as easily lose the money as you made it. So it's important not to get too excited, not to get too joyful and cocky in the markets. This also refers back to that market is king core principle. Okay, the market is going to humble you time and time again while you're learning, and even at all times throughout your career. So the ego that brings the excitement, the joy, and this cockiness, this feeling of being invincible, will eventually be wiped clean. But what I want to do here, why I'm putting this chapter together, why the chapter is in the course, is to hopefully set you up so that you don't have to face these emotions so much. So basically what we're saying, we spoke about negative, we spoke about positive emotions. You need to develop a neutral emotional mindset in order to succeed long-term in trading. You need to be able to block out the positivity and the negativity that trading brings you. As I said in the previous video, emotions are overcome with experience. It's a personal journey, and generally it's something that cannot be taught. Now, I'm setting you up with these emotions here so that you know what to do when you face them. So you know that, this is a normal thing to feel and that it's something that you need to try and manage. But as far as it goes, psychology cannot really be taught, and it's going to take some serious actual market experience to get over these different psychological factors. So it's a personal journey, personal to you. On that topic, I will share with you now some solid pointers on actually trying to resist some of these emotions and some solid guidance on overcoming the emotions when you see them. So for the depression side of things, we spoke about that depression and stress. Don't oversize your trades. Don't risk what you can't afford to lose. That means if you're going all in on this and you want to make trading your career, you need to have some savings. You need to have a rainy day fund, an emergency fund set aside. And you should only really be trading with capital that you can afford to lose. Now, if you are super, super enthusiastic, right? This is how I was. And you feel like going all in. You want to go all in on this trading thing. You want to make this succeed. That's great. But do not go all in, right? You can go all in mentally, and you can put, if you want, by all means, put the majority of your money into this if you're so serious about it. But I want to remind you now that you can lose all that money. And chances are, if you don't manage your risk, you don't actually follow rules, follow protocols, processes, you will lose that money. So don't actually risk more than you can afford to lose. Don't revenge trade. Now, what I mean is don't chase losses. Say you lose $100. Don't then chase that trade trying to make your $100 back and end up losing $500, because this happens, especially to beginners in the market. And it can be a big cause of that feeling of depression, that feeling of hopelessness. So to avoid the depression, to avoid the sadness of the market, don't risk more than you can lose. Don't put too much into your trades, and don't go chasing the losses. Now, when you lose, stay calculated, accept it, and recalculate and get ready to go again. Do not just chase that loss, because chances are you will pile that loss up. And you know what that's going to do to your mind? It's going to make you feel much, much worse. So these two factors also go for the stress and fear, right? If you're feeling stressed, it probably means you've got too much at risk. If you're feeling scared, it probably means you've got too much at risk. It all comes down to that. You should only be risking a very small amount. We will get into that in the risk sector of the course. Of course, I personally only risk a tiny percentage of my account on every single trade. And I'll be teaching you that. I'll be teaching you those processes and protocols in chapter 3. So for those positive emotions, the excitement, the joy, and the cockiness, you should remember those core principles. That core principle that is probably the one that pops in more than any other, that market is king. The market can take the money from you at any point. Now, that means if you're running in profit, be accepted to lose that profit. Be ready. If you are running in a profit, be ready for that to turn around and make you lose, okay? Don't get too excited. Don't get too joyful. Don't get too attached to the money until you've locked it in and banked it. And don't feel invincible. Don't get cocky. Don't think you're the god of the market, because you're not. The market is the king. Humble yourself. The market's going to do it for you if you do not. Greed. This is something to talk about as well. Greed is going to affect you. Now, this comes down to that cockiness aspect and also the losing aspect that I just spoke about. Now, when you get too cocky, you're going to get greedy, right? If you feel like you're invincible, you're going to up the greed. You're going to want more money. Now, greed is a big one because it's a natural human emotion that everyone feels. We're always trying to make more money. We're here in the markets to make money, right? So the greed is, of course, very, very strong in this environment. So to avoid that greed, and to avoid actually chasing the losses, as we just spoke about with that revenge trading bit, which of course is also down to greed. You can't accept that you've just lost that X amount of dollars and you really want it back. This whole greed thing is going to be detrimental if you don't actually stick to some concrete risk management protocols. Now, we'll talk about those in chapter 3, as I've said. Talk about discipline. We will talk about rules, craft some rules to follow. And it really is as simple as that, okay? It can be hard to follow the rules with your mindset fighting against you, but hopefully, as long as you make notes, as long as you work on it yourself and use everything that you learn in this course, you are going to learn a lot to actually set you up for success. So most emotions you feel do arise from losses in the market. To beat this, you need to understand that losses are absolutely normal and they are part of the process. When we lose money in the market, it is just a step in the larger staircase to success, right? We win trades, we lose trades. We win bigger trades than the small trades that we lose, and that is how it works. You will be learning more about that in the risks section. But just for now, note this down. Emotions arise from losses. Accept those losses. When you accept the losses, less emotions arise. Now, I'm so far into my trading journey now that when I lose a trade, I don't care. I know that it's the process that wins, right? We cannot win every single trade. Nobody wins every single trade. It's a variable that we cannot actually manage. Now, of course, we have our edge with our analysis, but that does not mean that we are going to win 100% of all trades. And that means that losses are always, always, always going to happen. Now, there's never going to be a point in my career or your career or anyone's career where they never lose a trade again. So why get emotional when it happens, when you know that it's inevitably always going to happen? Losses are normal. They're simply a part of the larger process. And as long as you follow all the rules and processes that we lay out in this course, you don't need to be feeling emotional about these losses, because essentially they are just one step, one cog in the machine. The other emotions you're going to feel, those positive emotions, arise from the wins in the market. And as I've said before, and I will say again, just stay humble. The market's going to humble you if you don't humble yourself. So that's it for this video. Hopefully I've given you a few tips and pointers on emotions there. I do believe that you've got some interesting points, some valuable points to move forward with. In the next video, we're going to be talking about developing yourself, developing your mind and your own overall mindset in life and in the markets. Now, personal development, that is what the video is going to be. And personal development is going to be super important, both inside of trading and outside of trading, for developing your character in the markets and in your life. So without further ado, we will dive right into that. Make sure you're making notes. Sorry if I've said that too many times, but I really do want you to actually take in everything that I'm saying. So I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. See you over there.